Hi guys, I'm going to teach you guys about Revit today. So this is your first intro video. So once you open Revit, this will be your start screen. To the right over here we have resources, which is where you can get updates and info about new things that are happening. Your center page will be templates and current or existing projects you have that you're working on. And the left side will be where you can start a template or a new project or family. There's a difference between projects and families. Projects will be designing the entire building itself, where families are smaller components like furniture that you import. There will be a families tutorial video later on, so we'll get to that later. So what you're going to do now is go to New, come over to your drop down and go to Architectural Template and hit OK. This will take you to home screen, the main screen in Revit. What you see here with these four little tabs are your elevation tags. To the right, you have your project browser. This is where you can go to different floor levels, ceilings, your four elevations that are here, and look at any families you've loaded, any legends, and sheets. To the left is where you have properties. Properties will give you different floor plans. You can change the scale, change your visibility and graphics, which we'll get to later. The sun path to create shadows, whether you want to crop the view, and other settings. The top is your main tabs. So this is where you'll go to kind of find any component you need or anything you want to make. So architecture, you'll have basically all your typical architectural components, your wall, your door, your window. If you go to any of these and hover over them, it'll give you a little description along with the shortcut beside it. So for wall, if you type in WA, the wall command will pop up and you can begin making your walls. And this is true for any of the components. Any component that has an arrow, you can drop down and get different types of walls, whether you have a model that you want to give to a face, a structural wall, or just a normal architecture. Different components, columns, get the gist. If you move over to structure, you'll have your typical structural elements, your beam, your structural wall, floor, trusses, braces. Come to steel. Probably won't use this tab too much, but it is there available for different bolts and welding joints. Your system, so your plumbing fixtures, your HVAC, your electrical, this will all be held in this tab. The insert tab is where you can link other DWGs into this file, or you can just import them if you're moving from Rhino to Revit, say. You can also import PDFs, images, or as I was mentioning earlier with families, this is where you can load different families or groups. The Annotate tab is if you are working on a sheet, say you are working in a firm or making construction documents, this is where you would go to dimension, any components, cloud them, add text. We'll get to annotations and sheets in another video. The Analyze tab is where you can kind of begin to create spaces. This is a lot used for schematic plans and creating different zones. You can get deeper into it with heating and cooling loads, panel schedules, your pipe pressure. This will also be a tab you guys probably won't use too much, at least not at this point in time. Massing and site is where you can create topography that goes along with your site. You can also create little architectural elements that aren't walls or floors or ceilings, but if you just want a massing, you can create that here. Collaborate is also a tab that you would use more in the workplace. It's where you can share your model with others and you can both be working on it at the same time. View is where you can create your sheets. You'll come here to go to overall 3D views, or if you want to set up a camera for an interior shot or a walkthrough, you're able to do that. You can do callouts, so if you're doing a section and you want a detail callout, make new elevations, new floor plans, that's all under the View tab. Manage is where you'll manage your project. So additional settings are here, which you'll use a lot, whether it'll be for fill patterns, if you are working in sheets, issues and revisions, where you can do those settings, the sun settings, where you can change what time of day it is, what the azimuth and altitude that you want the sun at. Additional settings has a lot of settings. We'll get to those in a little bit. Add-ins is where you can use different programs such as Saphira, which is an energy program, Formit, which is massing, which can easily be transmitted into here, in Revit, and you can work through that to build your floors and your walls from. And the Modify tab. Modify tab is where you can take an existing object that you have in Revit and modify it. You can rotate it, copy it, mirror it, whatever you need to do. So let's go back to the Architecture tab and let's draw a basic floor. So you'll come to the drop down, we'll just do an architectural floor. Now you'll see when the floor pops up, you have different options. You're going to start with your boundary line. Your boundary line is what you draw that creates the outside lines of the floor. So if you're looking for just a square, you can draw a square here and you'll see that it is dimensioning the size of your floor for you as you're moving and building it. You can also do simple line if you don't want a square. If you want to make an odd shape for your floor plan, you can do that. By clicking each line, it kind of gives you the tangents of the distance from one point to the next. The nice thing about Revit is when you are building your lines, it acknowledges the ortho planes for you and it locks in without there being grid. It also gives you the angle, so at all times when you're making a line, you know what angle the line is going at. Right now we're going to start with a basic floor. It doesn't have to be 45, 40, it can be whatever size you want. You draw that. When you're done and you're happy with the shape of your floor, you can either hit the check mark to finish it, or if you're not happy, you can get out of it. It's also possible if your floor is 4 sides, but one side is curved, you can select just one line, delete it, and come in here to certain arc tools that you can add and create a floor like that. You can do that separately by doing that or starting with individual lines or with starting with a square. If you don't make it complete and there's an open end and you try to hit complete, Revit will give you an error tab. So it'll give you the option to show what you did wrong and expand on it to get more information. So when you do this, you can either quit sketching or continue and try to close the loop. So I'll close that. I'm happy with it, so I'm going to hit check. When you are happy and you finish it, you now have a square and it's now a volume. So I'm going to go back to our View tab. I'm going to hit the house for 3D view. And you can see here, it gives the floor, it gives the thickness. We have a full volume for our floor. If for some reason you decide this is not the shape of the floor you want, you do not have to just delete this. You click on your floor and it automatically brings you back to the Modify tab. Here, you could edit your boundary and it takes you right back to this panel of adjusting the shape of your floor. If you want to do any different commands, like copy it, rotate it, offset it, that is where you click it, and it brings you the Modify tab, and they're all up here at the top. So the options we have up here are matched, so you can copy the type of properties. You can copy this to your clipboard or cut it to your clipboard. You are able to move it, so that just takes it and moves it over. You can copy it, and similar, Revit tells me how far I'm copying it. If you want to go exactly 100 feet, you're here, you can just type 100 and it pops up and it knows to copy it that far. That is one of the nice things about Revit, is as you're copying, you're able to just type in the measurements you want. You can rotate it. When you rotate, it automatically will rotate from the center of whatever object you have, and it will tell you the angle and degrees you're working with. If you wanted to rotate from a different point, click your object, you go to rotate. Up here will be a little panel where you can type the angle you want to rotate. Maybe you want to rotate and copy it, or you want to place your center of rotation somewhere different. You will type place. You can click to where you would like, and then rotate just as usual. I'm going to bring this back. The nice thing about Revit is, go back to Edit Boundary, Revit will snap to certain points automatically. It'll snap to your endpoint, your midpoint, it'll snap anywhere along the object, and it'll find the perpendicular and recognize 90 and 45-degree angles. If you want to change anything about your project or what it snaps to, you can go to Manage. You can change the snaps with the snap bar. And if you didn't want to snap to nearest or working plane grid, intersections, you're able to edit it all here. You're able to edit the degrees that it'll snap to in increments and the different lengths it'll go by. You're also able to edit project units. So you type length, and in here you can change it to the metric system or keep it with feet and inches. You can also change it to decimal feet, fractional inches, decimal inches, whatever suits you for your project. You can also change what the area measures in, angle, slope. So next I'm going to hit cancel, and we're going to come over to visibility and graphics. Visibility and graphics allows you to turn on and off the objects in the current view. So if you have your entire building design, but you wanted to turn off the roof to be able to pan around and see inside, you're able to uncheck roof and hit apply, and that would change, that would turn off your roof in that view. That's under model categories. So the difference between model categories, annotation categories, or annotations are your dimensions, your door tags, truly your annotations, and model categories are the physical models within your project. You're able to change either of those and turn them off in your views under visibility and graphic overrides. You're also able to override the line weight and pattern. So if I wanted to change the line weight of my door, I'll click on door. They have default settings for you, but I'm able to click override and change the different pattern. So when it's shown in the sheet or view, it'll show up as, dashed, dotted, whatever you decide to override with. Next, we're going to go up to Object Styles. Object Styles is where you can see the more detailed aspect of what your door is producing before it is overwrote. So currently the line is solid, it's black, the line weight cut is 2, and if it's not cut, it's just a projection, it's also 2. You can come in here and edit how thick you want the line weight for projection or for cut. You can change your line weight color, and you can change the line pattern. You're also able to assign a material, which will bring you here. Another way to get to the material from your main Revit screen is stay under the Manage tab, and on the left you can click Materials. Materials are very helpful when you are creating a wall type, assigning a certain material to your elevation, to your interiors, to your floors. They have multiple default materials already in here. You have brick, you have carpet, concrete, copper. They also just have basic default materials. And whenever you click on one of the materials, over here to the right is where you can see information about that material, what color will come out, the appearance of what it will look like. This can take a second to load, or identity about it. You can also access different line weights and styles for individual things under the additional settings. Additional settings also has the sun settings. I touched briefly on this earlier, but you're able to pick where the sun comes from, change what level, different altitudes. You can check whether it's actually relative to the specific view or not, and what kind of solar study settings you would like. Lastly, what I intend to touch on are the buttons down here. The first is your scale. So you're able to change your scale over here in the Properties tab, or you can change, there's some default settings down here that are easy to access. You can change your line weight here, or your scale, pardon. Your detail level, so if you have let's say, a complex wall, we are currently on coarse, but if I would change it to medium, I would get a little bit more detail on the wall, or fine. This is nice that if you're drawing a big scale project, so you can leave it on coarse, you don't have to think about what's lining up. But I would recommend changing it to medium or fine. That way you can see the individual layers, and you can know if you accidentally put the brick on the inside of the wall instead of the outside, and kind of double check yourself there. Next is visual style. So this is where you can look at things in wireframe, hidden line, shaded, consistent colors, realistic. You can change it to whatever setting you prefer. Graphic display options allows you to add shadows, smooth the lines, different type of sketching lines over it, different lighting. So you're able to edit those through that graphic option, or it's over here under graphic display. It's right below the visibility and graphic settings we were looking at earlier. These two buttons kind of go hand in hand. The one on the right shows your crop region. So this is where it's currently cropping my project. You're able to click on the box, and this button's able to move, and it'll crop your project where you would like it. So that button, all it does is either shows where your crop region is, or you can hide it. But regardless, even if I move it up and crop my project and click that button, it's still cropping there, I just can't see the line anymore. The button to the left of it just changes whether you're actually cropping the view or not. So even though my crop region is there, I've turned off crop view, which is why I'm able to see all of the floor and wall I've created. Move that back out so we can see our elevation tags. Temporary hide and isolate. Currently, they are all grayed out because nothing is hidden. You are able to click on your floor, say you didn't want to see this anymore, right click, abundance of options pop up, where you're able to hide this in view. Now you can hide the element, which is just the only thing I selected, or the category, which means I could hide all floors in my project. So I'll hide element, and now this is gone. If I wanted to get it back, that's where I come to temporary hide, this is where I come to reveal hidden objects, and it pops up my floor. So you can click on the floor, and up here, under my modified tab, I can hit unhide the element. Once you have everything unhidden that you want, you can unclick the light bulb. This button is temporary view properties. So you're able to see temporarily what's been hidden, what hasn't, based on the properties you set up for your project. This is hide analytical model, which we really won't need to get into, and reveal constraints, which we also won't need to get into. Okay, over here in the properties tab, you can also change crop view. If we go back to our 3D view, you notice another option under extents is section box. So if you want to take a section of your project, you click section box, and this box pops up. You are able to use these arrows to move your box around and change its dimensions and its size. To what size you would like it to be. For panning around, you can use the two little buttons over here. If you click on that, this gives you navigation tools, so you can either use Shift Control Alt along with your mouse to move around Revit, or you're able to just use your pointer finger mouse and click on Zoom to zoom in and out, Orbit to move around the object, pan around. This is just a preference of whether you want to use the mouse and the right click, left click, Shift Control Alt, or if you want to use this bar here, you can click the little X to get out if that's not what you want. This bar up here allows you to get an isometric view, a top view, front elevation, and allows you to navigate that way, and you're still able to orbit around. Go back to level 1. Phasing and filtering will be touched a little more on the Views and Annotations tab, but you're able to decide whether what you're creating is an existing object or new construction. This is obviously very helpful when you're working on an existing building and you need to differentiate whether the architectural elements are being demolished, they're existing, or it's a part of new construction. In your face filter, we're on show all, but say if we had multiple architectural objects of demo, existing, and new, but I just wanted to see the new, I could change it and it would get rid of all the demolition existing objects, and I could just see what is being added to the project. Okay guys, that was your quick little intro to Revit. In the next video, we are going to cover the architectural elements of walls, doors, floors, and windows, and how to begin to manipulate and change those based on what your design needs.